the designated survivor is actually a true thing. It goes all the way back to the Constitution, and any major assembly of the United States government, most commonly the State of the Union, there has to be a member of the President's cabinet, sequestered and protected now by the FBI and the Secret Service in case of an attack or a natural disaster. And so that person ultimately protects the line of succession to the presidency. And so in the context of our show, I play Tom Kirkman, who is a low-level cabinet minister. He's in charge of housing and urban development. And he's not in great favor with the president, and so he gets the kind of bad duty of being the designated survivor. It's not a coveted thing. I think, we respect it out of our historical reverence to the past, and so he's not allowed to go to the State of the Union. And on that night, there is a terrible attack on the Capitol building, and he becomes president. I think he's a very compassionate man. I think one of his great characteristics is that he really does care for people who are less fortunate. The thing that gets him in trouble with the president is he's really pushing an agenda for low-cost housing across America, and it's not fitting into the president's plan at this time, which ultimately makes him the designated survivor. He's a good father and he's a good husband, and I think he's a character certainly I like as an actor to play, but I think an audience will too. And so to watch someone who is kind of as kind-hearted as Tom Kirkman, and in many ways gentle as Tom Kirkman, to be thrust into this position of being one of the most powerful people in the world, that's not for the faint of heart. And so you realize that there's going to be some jeopardy for his family, and I think it's a nerve-wracking situation to watch someone be thrust into that kind of spotlight. When I read the very first script by David Guggenheim, I was about 15 pages through. I wasn't giving it a serious read. I was really getting through it to kind of apologize to someone who was a friend of mine, Mark Gordon, who produces the show, and explained to him why I couldn't do it. And I was about 25 pages in, and I went, oh no. And I went back to the beginning, and I started really reading it very seriously. It's just a beautifully written piece. The characters are so well defined. And I think it opens up and it gives a landscape for the rest of our writers as storytellers. It allows us to explore things that are happening in our country that we certainly in this last election cycle have been, certainly been debating a lot of the issues about why the country is frustrated. And we get to take a look at those issues, and we get to have, I think, a very intelligent conversation about the economy, about race relations in the country, about uncertainties abroad, all of those different things. And I think the characters, again, are so well developed that the show will actually be able to represent, I think, an intelligent view from the right and an intelligent view from the left. I've always believed very strongly that this country works at its best when both political parties are really strong. And I think there's arguments to be made that that might not be the case right now. And I would like to be a part of a show that's going to show the country in many ways what it can be. He's not prepared on any level. I don't think anybody could have expected or would expect the dynamic and dramatic circumstances that start our show. And I don't think anybody is prepared for the presidency overnight. In most cases, that is a career politician who's worked for many, many years in public service and then goes through at least a couple years of campaigning, and through that process, they start to really understand what the job will require. Having said that, he's a good person, and he has a very strong moral center or compass, and he will do his best to follow that. What I think is interesting over the long view of the show, or the longer course of the show, is that age-old question, do corrupt people ascend to power, or does power corrupt? And so here's this very good person, and what is going to become of him over the long haul? And I haven't gotten to read those episodes yet, so I don't know either, so I'm waiting to see. It comes down to very simple things. I think the show is made with a great deal of integrity, and that's from the writers to the directors to our crew to our cast. There's a lot of care going into how we want it to look, how the pacing we want, and most importantly, what we want to say as a show. And then ultimately, it's going to be very current. It's going to be topical. And it's going to have very different perspectives. And I think that that's really important. And then just on an entertainment side, to have 3 storylines to be able to revolve around. And those 3 storylines can intertwine, or they can run separately on their own. It allows a kind of freedom for the writers to have some room to move. And we have extraordinary writers. So for all of those reasons, again, I am cautiously optimistic.